Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the building blocks of spirit, also known. I'm also sharing my personal spiritual awakening kind of story, or different levels of my spiritual awakening awareness. Um, that has happened ever since I met my spirit guides. That was like the catalyst. And so I have these different levels that I want to share with you guys that you can expect to experience once you decide to develop into your energetic receptors so that you can receive and and automatically intentionally communicate with the spiritual realm, and how deep it actually goes, and it keeps going, right there. We're never going to be at the end, so I hope you guys are going to sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of the Craving Consciousness podcast. I'm also going to be obviously loading it up to my YouTube channel, so if you prefer to like watch a video or you're on YouTube, then come follow me and give me a like at Brandeline Johnson on YouTube. So let's dive right in. I have written down all these different levels. So this may be kind of a long episode. I know some of mine are like 5 to 20 minutes long. So let's just see what's going to go down, because we're going to do this organically. We'll call in our spiritual team, in love and light only, to give me clean and clear information of these different types of levels of this type of spiritual awakening, um and my type of experience through this. You guys are going to dig this, dig it, dig it, dig it. So when I said part of my personal story, especially after I met my spirit guides, that was like, again, that was like the catalyst for me. Some of you guys your catalyst may be like the fairy realm was a huge thing for me, or some of you guys are seeing the angelic numbers so much that you just can't make it up anymore, that you know that there is something higher or something different communicating with you. Some of you guys may have had just different, maybe you communicated with the angelic realm first. Maybe that was the catalyst for you to realize that this isn't what life is really about, going through the motions, all of that. So first you get to that catalyst. And then once you realize that you're not making this stuff up, right? That there's actually some sort of strange experience bigger than yourself. That's when you start questioning your sanity. And for me, you guys know one of my favorite episodes, episode 11, was when I talked about how people thought I was freaking nuts, and to the point where they were like, maybe we should check Brandolene somewhere. But I was questioning my sanity, because once I knew that my spirit guides were actually real, I had actual validation that they were actually communicating with me. I found that they were throughout my whole life. Even though I didn't know they were there, I wasn't aware of them yet. But once I knew that this was the real shit, I started actually questioning my sanity. Um, then it just like gets a little bit deeper than there, right? I was speaking to the dead at that point, but it goes deeper. So you're like, okay, well, I met my guides. Am I crazy? Am I making this shit up? Okay, maybe not. All right, let's go a little bit deeper. Now all of a sudden I'm communicating with the dead, and wrapping your head around, hey, dead people are still there. It's actually very normal. Whereas the way we were raised, right, or our societal norms say that that's not the case. So again, questioning your sanity through each one of these levels. I think you get to a certain point, like at least for me, I've gotten so much validation through communicating with spirit, quantum intelligence, um, all of that, and getting so much validation that I don't question my sanity anymore. I just know that it's a different level that I'm learning. Something I love to talk about with my students too, or with all of you guys, is that it's so important for us to learn to communicate with spirit, because you can't learn what they teach you through a book. It's just not there. It's not logical information. You need to integrate with spirit so that you're here, and then they work with you, and then you're like, come to this new awareness and this new knowing of your existence. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But this is why I'm so passionate about my Awaken program, because it's the key for you to get to this beginning level. I always call it like algebra. Like if you miss the first couple of weeks in algebra class, you're screwed, because there's so many little components. And that's why I feel the first step for you is to learn to communicate with your spirit guides, to learn to use your psychic, seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing abilities. And yes, maybe even communicating with a dead, or even like an alien or a light being. This is that next level, right? Communicating with more beings, And then the level after that would be like, okay, not only are you aware that they're communicating with you, but you're actually reaching out intentionally to receive information. So you start channeling. You start channeling information and bringing it through you to this third dimensional realm, to this, I guess, quote unquote, reality, so that you become this beacon, like this ripple effect to this knowledge that you are now channeling through, and you're bringing it here again, because nobody could get it through a book. You're starting to know things that you just couldn't know. And then it builds on from there. Because let's just say, for example, let me give an example of like the building blocks. Like, say you never heard of like an alien or whatever, and then you open your back door and there's a full on freaking UFO spaceship sitting there, and there's a freaking alien at your back door. You would likely go into shock, disbelief. A lot of times, like, your ego will keep you safe, and maybe you'll just think that you just made that up. Like, again, you'll go into shock. You weren't able to embody that experience. But if you go the steps like I'm saying, where you're like, okay, I'm learning how to communicate with this alien, even though I can't see them yet, right? And then you just keep doing this building block. Okay, now I'm aware of how they communicate. Okay, now I'm aware of how they travel. Now I'm aware about their dimensional beingness. And so then one day you open your back door and there's the UFO and the alien. You're like, oh, hey, I'm totally aware and keen on this information, where you wouldn't be able to really necessarily have that experience in a book. You learned it through learning and learning and learning more through working with the spiritual realm. So again, back to that other level, it's like channeling the new knowledge and information from the spiritual realm to bring it through here. And then along with all of this, and not necessarily in this order, right? Some of you guys may experience it differently. Some of you guys will experience crazy wild stuff, and that's why I love helping y'all through the Awaken program, so that I can help answer your questions, because some of y'all will be bouncing all around all of these different things. Like, you might accidentally channel and not know that you just did it, and then it freaks you out. So these don't necessarily come in that order, but for me, this is the best way to paint like the picture for you guys. So with all of this, right, you question your sanity, and you start working with the spiritual realm, you start channeling information, and then you start coming into this really greater understanding of who you be and why you be here, right? Why are you aware of yourself as Brandoline and a human right now? Why? And you come into this greater understanding of the role that you are playing in this cosmic soup that I love to call it, right? And when you come to this greater understanding, one, plus you're working with the spiritual realm, two, this is when you come into this greater understanding in a peaceful manner, versus opening that back door and seeing the freaking UFO and an alien standing there, where it causes trauma and fear. When you're working with spirit and you come to this greater understanding, that's when you're like, okay, now when shit happens in the world, when there's so much fear stuff coming at you, you don't have that fear. You don't absorb that fear, because you have this greater understanding of how the universe works, of what your existence really means, and that it's not going to terminate, and that you're playing this super amazing role as a multidimensional being. And then again, along with that, is breaking free from the norm. Once you get to this point, you're like, I'm channeling. I know I'm a multidimensional being. I have come to this greater awareness. I'm communicating with my guides. I know why I'm here. And then you're like, well, what really is here? Wait, this isn't what really is norm. And so you get to this calling of, I can't fit in. And I never did fit in. Like, people of you guys that are watching this or listening, probably most of you can agree, like, do you fit in? You're probably watching or listening because you don't fit in, because you feel this kind of calling. And a lot of times that's actually at the very beginning step, is just feeling like you don't fit in. Um, but once you come to this level, then you're like, well, not only do I understand why I never felt like I fit in, now I know that I can't fit in. And therefore I need to change something. I need to do something. I need to like leave my career, start a new career. I need to move across the country, move to a different country. I need to stop playing this stupid human role that I've been playing with these different relationships. And next comes with that is like relationships shifting. And I wrote on here like losing relationships. I don't necessarily want to use that word, because when you change and other people don't, it makes them want to leave. It's not necessarily you cutting off your relationships. It's your relationships aren't authentic anymore, and that the person that is no longer serving you in this relationship will usually fall away. I get so many of my students that are scared of that happening. Even sometimes that will hold them back from taking my programs or coaching with me, because I straight up will tell you, having your spiritual awakening will completely change your life, and change is always uncomfortable. And change might mean getting a divorce. Change might mean leaving a career and being scared of starting something completely new. Change might mean, these long-term relationships just no longer serve you. But in the end, if you stay in the matrix, right, and you stay in these relationships, it's just going to become toxic, and it's going to be difficult for you. So we do lose relationships, right? Episode 11, you guys know I almost lost one of the major relationships in my life, but that person came around and realized that I was this completely different person, and I was radiating joy and happiness, and then they wanted a piece of that. They wanted to understand and embrace it. So sometimes you don't lose a relationship, but the relationship as it was terminated and it started anew, right? Um, Another thing that I say is becoming aware of that greater awareness also it gets even deeper. It goes even deeper. Some of you may or may not understand this or be able to embrace this, but like learning that you're in like a hologram, that you're actually like trapped in a hologram. Um, and what does that mean for you if you're in a hologram, right? Does that mean that you are artificial intelligence? Does that mean you're AI? What does that mean for you? Um, what does being in a hologram mean for you, right? And then starting to question the science behind spirituality. This was huge for me, um, because I really wanted something tangible to prove that I wasn't freaking crazy and that I wasn't making these things up. So as you guys know, that I talk a lot about is really being that spiritual science nerd, that real energy nerd, and energy is science. So understanding the way energy moves or transmutes, and then applying it to an actual scientific thing. When we start talking about quantum physics, which is why I've always been fascinated with quantum physics, because quantum physics is the bridge between spirituality and reality, right? So when you could actually prove with atoms and science and energy what you're experiencing spiritually, then it just makes it that much more real, and that much more reason to start questioning even more and more. Um, this is when you get to be guided to start working with quantum energy, and you get to learn that maybe those dead people that you were talking to, or maybe those spirit guides that you were talking to, and this was me this morning, working with spirit, and I call it all spirit, right? Because essentially it's just you moving your awareness to a certain point, not necessarily through time and space, but it's you moving your awareness to a certain frequency. So maybe those spirit guides aren't necessarily this guide standing next to you. Maybe it's you becoming aware of another aspect of yourself, or another aspect of the quantum field. Because right now you're just aware of yourself, as for me, like as Brandeline. Uh, and being guided through that quantum field, where maybe you're not even a human, maybe you're a sailboat, and you're just becoming aware that you could connect with that sailboat, right? I'm trying to like blow your mind a little bit, because there's no way to like say this, and this is what's real, especially after you start getting really deep into the science and you start getting really deep into spirituality. Everything can be real. Anything you can imagine can be real. So, navigating, being guided to work with this quantum energy and understanding how quantum energy works, and then realizing that you are one with everything, and it's really just your awareness moving to that space. And it's probably your ego or your human brain that's telling you that you have to identify this person as your dead grandma, or Archangel Michael as this angel. We're giving things labels so that it like works for us. And this is where my students begin, because that's where they have to begin, because you're so deeply programmed, you're so deeply um in your belief system about who you are and what this world is, that's kind of where you need to begin. But it goes so, so deep when you get to this part, right? Um, and then again, like navigating your human experience, knowing all this and all of this information that you're receiving about what your this world really is, or this hologram really is, and being able to do it without fear, right? Um, but also doing it with peace, but also like look at how excited I am if you're watching this instead of listening. um, Realizing how exciting it is to be this human right now, and that you're being called to be able to bring all this through for humanity, and the sense of responsibility once you have discovered who you be and what you have access to and the abilities that you can have and the spiritual science nerd that you can become. So these are the building blocks that I wanted to share. I would love to hear you guys' comments on like what types of these experiences have you had? How deep do they go? Do you work with spirit on a regular basis? Um, and when I say maybe that dead person really isn't your dead person, maybe it's just your awareness moving to who that identity was, because we are all one. It doesn't mean that you can't communicate with that dead person and that you can't bring through phenomenal information from that dead person for their living people. You are tapping into an essence of the quantum field, right? Somebody's getting ready to like record me on their podcast about this stuff, because there's so many different levels of psychic and mediumship development, or even intuition awareness, that when we get to this deep part of the science aspect, they're like, wow, you're blowing my freaking mind. And I just absolutely love to like expand your mind, open your mind around how deep can this go. So now we're navigating through our human experience, and we're guided to work with quantum intelligence, right? Infinite intelligence, as many people maybe would be calling God, right? Quantum intelligence, infinite intelligence. How amazing is that? And then how much deeper does it go? Because you can't get there until you're here, right? What got you here isn't going to, what got you here, you need to get here before you could go there, is what I'm trying to say. Um, and you need the knowledge that comes with all of these different levels of working with spirit before you can again embrace this new knowledge, this new experience. Um, and I get nerded out, because even if you think about like the Ancient Aliens show, and everybody's always talking about how did they build those pyramids? Like there's no logical way. Um, but I bet there is a logical way we as humans can't, where we're at right now in our evolution as just human beings in the third dimension, cannot embrace how someone made those pyramids, because we don't have that knowledge within us. But when you start working with spirit, and if you started working with spirit and you started working with spirit specifically to find out more about those pyramids and how they were built, and that was your passion, this is why I get so excited, because you learn these skills and then you could go off into any little arena And so say, for example, your passion is finding more out about who built the pyramids and how they did it. And if you work with the spiritual realm, you're going to come into knowledge and you're going to come into an awareness of exactly how that was done, whether it was other beings that came down, or maybe we were more evolved and we could just move shit with our eyes back then. And like we had little lasers shoot out of our eyes to like cut the giant rocks, and like we just move them up there with telepathy. Like, right? Like I question everything anymore, because when you could talk to the dead, when you could speak with infinite intelligence, when you've done the work with quantum physics to understand that this is absolutely scientifically happening, then what else could be real? How much deeper can it go? This is what I love to teach you guys through my Awaken program or spiritual awakening coaching directly with me. So scope it out. The Awaken program is always open for enrollment. And we do bi-weekly calls with me, and the whole program is there for you so that you can learn all of these skills and start building that your spiritual awakening bridge to all this deep ass shit. So I'm sending you guys all love. I hope you love this episode, and I will talk to y'all soon.